set my timer so I don't go over the time. I have a habit of doing that. My name is Mike Sykes. I'm an alcoholic. So now we're on step 3 tonight, which reads, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. When I first came around, I would hear a lot. There's like this AA math question that people throw on there with these 3 frogs on a log, and they're trying to emphasize what a decision is. And it basically is, to summarize, if you haven't heard the frog thing, I'll save you from it. But it's just like, I can have a thought that I want to go do something. And unless I get up and go do it, then it was just like a little thought. And when it comes to sobriety, I mean, this is a big thing to contemplate. And how do I even do that? Like they say in this 3rd step, just what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? So there's a lot of doings that go on even with the 3rd step. And you might hear many people say that proof that you have taken the 3rd step is that you begin to write an inventory. You write this 4th step. They say in the book that though our decision, this 3rd step decision, was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. So they go back again, and as you read page 60 to 63, if I'm ever having like a hard time in any given day, and I would say in sobriety, because this is designed for living. This is something that I'm trying to do every single day. And so I might have like a rough day or a rough moment, and I can go back and I can read 60 to 63, start after the A, B, and C, where they start step 3, and up to the 3rd step prayer. And I find myself in those pages, and it reminds me that, okay, there's something I have to let go of, because there's something that's blocking me. That's usually where I get hung up. So what does it not working the 3rd step look like? I could be at work, and I'm like, this foreman is an idiot. This guy has no idea what he's doing. I can't believe he has me doing this thing over here, this trivial, stupid thing, when I could be doing this more important thing. And he's got these people that have no idea what they're doing. The whole job is going to blow up. And this is all happening in my head. And so I'm thinking these thoughts, and it might sound to you like, oh man, he's just like getting all fired up. I've been there. But what happens to me when I think that way, I stop functioning. Like my hands don't do what they're supposed to do. My feet don't move where they're supposed to go. I want to leave. I want to get out because I can't take this thing that's happening. And this thing that's happening, it is what it is. So what am I going to do? Run from everything? And the biggest thing that's happening is my judgment. That's the issue that I'm having. It's not really even with the person and what they did or whatever. One of the best things that I learned to do out of taking commitments, having a home group, was becoming a trusted servant. So I'm a GSR now for my home group. And I've held many different officer positions, and I learned what it is to be a trusted servant. I learned that actually really by not being a trusted servant. One time I was a treasurer from my old home group, and I borrowed about $1,400 from them, stole it. I took little increments. I'm going to pay it back, like Dumb and Dumber with the IOU in the briefcase thing. And it accumulated to this massive amount. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have enough coming in. I have no idea how to do a budget. I'm just totally mismanaging, and I'm treating my home group's business account, our treasury account, as if it's like my second, do whatever you want with it, Mike. Yeah, we're so happy that you took this treasurer commitment. Just buy whatever you need. They never said that, and I never even asked. And it started with something like my daughter needed diapers one day, and I'm like, all right, it's Thursday night, I gotta go get them. I get paid tomorrow. It's Friday. Good, no harm, no foul. But I never pulled anybody aside. I never asked anybody, hey, is it okay that I do this? Or can I do this? Or even humble myself enough to say, guys, can I borrow a couple dollars? I got to go get some diapers. I don't have it. It all came out of me trying to run the show myself. This actor, right? Trying to direct everything. And it's just me. And I made it that way because I wasn't submitting myself to anything. I would say God out of my mouth and tell other people how to practice these steps and all this kind of stuff. But there's a large piece of me for a long time where I lacked awareness of what was I actually doing. And today, because of having situations like that and me being kind of like smacked in the face with myself and the reality of what I was doing, that word care means a lot to me today. So I place myself, everything I am, my will and my life, everything that I got, I'm putting into the care of God. I'm not just throwing these things out there and like hoping something out there, some Casper the Friendly Ghost is just going to save me. It's like I'm being cared for. I like the Lord's Prayer, the one that starts with Our Father. We say that at the end of the meeting. And I have kids, and my biggest hope is that they know how much I care for them. And it's not by the things that I do or the things we do together or what I buy them or whatever. It's the feeling that I have. It's the outpouring of love when I see them. Like when you have a new baby, that's just perfect, right? And it's just like this overwhelming feeling of, oh my God, like all these things outwards to them. And today I get to have this understanding through experiences that I have a God in my life, that I have an understanding, or really I have an experience with a God, a higher power, that cares for me in that kind of way. Because I couldn't be here at this table doing it all by myself. I couldn't do any of these things. My sobriety date is March 12th, 2008. That was not a day that I didn't throw a dart at the calendar randomly or like, this is the day when I recreate my life. I couldn't do that. I was just some bum, like shuffling around on the street. I don't even remember what my last drunk was. So, sometimes you got to remember your last drunk. Well, I don't know. I'm not like forcibly trying to do that. I know what it is to be an alcoholic because I know what my experience is. But I was like shuffling around in Levittown and may have scrounged up enough money for a 40 or two, or maybe I had my go-to of like the top shelf Laird's or Vladimir, whatever it was, I had enough change for it that day. But I was just existing, and I hated it. And I was just meandering around, and people just didn't want me around, and I just didn't make any sense when I would try to talk to whatever friends that I had hanging on. And there was just nothing. There was nothing to my life. And I came in here. I went to a treatment facility. It was, it was kind of, I guess you could say, higher end to some people. They didn't give us like a coin or a certificate when we graduated, but we got our belt and our shoelaces back. So that was like the perfect place for me. That's exactly where I fit. And, we contracted for safety every day. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt me. Everybody's happy, all this kind of stuff. And I hated everything that my life was at that point. And this little old guy came in from AA, and he was just so happy. Like they had to pull him out of there, like after the H&I commitment was over. Like, because he would have, like, if they had a spare bed, he would have hung out with us and spent the night, had a sleepover, big book study or something. But this dude was just happy, and he kept talking about get a sponsor and go through these steps. Get a sponsor, take our steps, all this stuff. And I had no idea what he was talking about, but he burnt that into my head enough that when I got out here to you, I went up to this guy when I was broken, and I just said, like, I need a sponsor, and I felt like I was saying it wrong, and he just saw that I was, like, dead, the Walking Dead, I was perfect for this. So he was so excited. He knew I would do whatever he asked me to do, and we got right into it, and we did this. We took this step together, and I remember we were in his office. We were on our knees together, and we said this prayer, and the prayer is on page 63. I don't say thee and thou, so I'll just say how, because I don't speak like that, like I'm not Shakespeare, every day. So I say it as God. I say Father. I offer myself to you, to build with me and do with me as you would. So when I said this prayer with him, I felt different because it was something different that I was doing. I grew up Roman Catholic. I was an altar boy. I know stand, kneel, all that kind of stuff. No problem with it. I actually loved it. For any of the recovering Catholics in here, my experience wasn't too bad. Maybe we could talk about that afterwards if you're struggling with that. I'm not here to change anybody, but it helps to talk with other people. And spirituality is a huge part of my day-to-day, and how I fellowship with other people who are really trying to grow spiritually, whether that be in AA or even in the church that I attend. So trying to get over any of those hurdles, I think, is really important. But when I initially had said this prayer, it wasn't like a deep level of understanding that I had at that time. But every time I've come back and re-prayed this prayer, primarily with guys that I'm working with. So sponsorship is important because sponsorship, aside from my daily meditation and prayer ritual or practice, I will say this prayer, I'll say a rendition of it, but I get to say this prayer again with guys that I sponsor. And it's always a little bit different. But I get to come back and revisit what it's saying. And at some point through the course of being sober, I looked at these as questions. And I looked at it as like, okay, so what is it that I'm offering to God? Into the care of God. And so he's going to build with me and do with me as he would. So that's a pretty caring thing. It's kind of like, my daughter, when she was first trying to ride a bike, I remember taking her not having the training wheels on it. And I was so scared to death. This little bouncy, little, happy, springy-haired, full of joy little girl. And I'm like, oh my God, I just... Don't fall. But I can't hold the bike the whole time, right? Because then she doesn't learn how to balance herself. So it's this act of letting go. And like she has to act on her own free will. And it kind of like, I was like, wow, okay. So I kind of am gaining some understanding here of how God works in my life. I can make whatever decisions that I want to make and do whatever it is I want to do because I have free will. And I get to have mistakes. I get to experience that. I also get to feel the pain of separating, especially after having made this commitment or said this prayer and really meant it. I'm asking that for him to relieve me of the bondage of self, just so I can better do his will. So again, the things that have been blocking me. So that's a reoccurring theme here in this third step. And I think that's an important thing for me to see personally because, on any given day, if I am unchecked and I'm just running out into the world and just going and doing my thing, somewhere along the line, I catch a blockage. And it might not seem like that at first. It might just seem like a slight irritation or an annoyance or whatever it is. But I don't really realize so many times that that's something that I can't afford. Because these annoyances and these little stupid occurrences, sometimes it's things that happen and maybe I forget about it. But more often than not, they happen and then I remember them throughout the day. And I remember them tomorrow. And I remember them next week. And they're trivial. They really don't mean anything in the grand scheme of how can I be of service to you, God? Or how can I be of service to the other people around me? Because when I'm all blocked up and I'm angry and resentful, feeling this stupid, trivial thing, I'm not the type of person who's like, I could be angry and it's like, oh, all right, you want to help? Like, I'm like, I don't feel like answering this phone call. I don't want to do this commitment. I don't blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And man, I just get so cornered because I start to almost like tell myself in this like some kind of like creepy background noise that all this stuff is too far away, that this stuff is unattainable. It's weird because it doesn't like come out that way, but by my actions, eventually that's where I end up. And none of these things are far away. It's kind of like, it's like a perception thing. I drive usually to the city every day to Philadelphia for work, and I'm coming up 95, and I can see the skyline. And I know that these buildings are huge because I've been in them and right next to them or whatever, but when I'm really far away, they don't look that big. But when you get up close, this thing is enormous. The Comcast building, like, you're just looking forever upwards. And God is like that to me because he's always big. But sometimes when I put myself in a position where I'm seemingly far away, he seems small. He doesn't seem like he can really do these things for me because I've made that separation happen. And I've done it through accumulating a whole bunch of crap, blockages. So these things, and especially this prayer, this really kicks off. So they're saying to take away these difficulties that I have. So these blockages. So guess what? You can have blockages that occur. That's the gift of being a human being, right? And having free will. But these can be taken away. They really can. And it's a vital thing. It's so important for us to attempt to ask for these things to be removed. And it's a beautiful experience to try that. I think it was Emmett Fox talks about scientific prayer. So it's kind of like a hypothesis kind of thing. All right, well, I'm going to try it. Let me try this little test theory of praying. And man, I'll tell you what, when I pray, things change. I love this guy, Ralph. He had said that prayer doesn't always change things for you, but it'll change you for things. And that's what happened. Right. That's what I did when I first heard it. And every single time, and it means that. It's like this thing that really does start to rearrange things internally in a spiritual sense because I want it. Because this is a real commitment to me. These aren't just mumbling words on a page. And I'm not doing these things because my life depends on it and I'm trying to save my own skin. When you tap into this thing, and you sit down with somebody else, and you take somebody else through the steps, one, if you keep that as a way of life, you will never drink again. That's a promise. I'm not making that up. That's backed up in this literature. And talk to any of the people who have been sober for quite a bit of time, which is unfathomable to any of us who can't not drink for a day. But how is it Ron, 30, 33?
39. No,
forever,
yeah.
Right? It's like an eternity. I don't even think he should measure it anymore. It's just infinite at this point. But how do you do that and then you're still happy? You're still moving around. You're doing these things. And I've gotten to know so many people like that. How does that happen for you? Because aside from just abstinence and putting it down, they've surrendered themselves. Surrender you can't really find in the big book. They don't use that specific word, but it was big in the early days, especially in the stories and the experiences of and they would call it when they were in the drunk squad of the Oxford group. That's an aside to historical stuff, but they would say you had to make a surrender. So it's you're licked, you're done. What are you gonna? You've been trying this the whole time, and you haven't really done anything worthwhile. It's not working for you. So what else do you got? And I can get myself into that space, and I ask for these things to be taken. But I'm asking for a specific reason. And here's where we kick off with the way that all of our prayers start and finish. Take these things away so I can help somebody. That's the whole thing. It's about helping people. And there's a really important paragraph in there too later on, that we cannot be helpful to all people, and here's a miracle, but at least God will show us a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. So maybe I can't actually help this person or take them to somewhere or whatever. And I don't pray from a position of superiority, but I ask God to change my heart and the way that I'm viewing and take away my judgment, because that's the thing that really trips me up the most. And allow me to see them how you see me. You must see me in some kind of a good light, because why did you give me all this? The more that I do that, the more that I am with other people, it really blows you away. It opens up your heart so much more, because aside from the life we get to live today because of these principles, you have the ability to be a bystander at somebody coming back to life. Literally raised from the dead right in front of you. That is an experience that you must not miss. And the people who miss out on that, AA seems like this thing of busy work. It seems I got to go to the meeting. Eventually it's I want to go to the meeting. Oh, that meeting has good coffee. And then it's you have one bad cup, and it's screw that meeting. Or this person's an idiot. Or they got this Mike guy speaking in Doylestown again. Can't I get away from him? You might have whatever experience it is, but it becomes this ripple effect. It's the snowball going down the hill, accumulating more crap. because this is busy work to me, rather than this is how I just live. And I understand that, hey, there's other alcoholics here, not just me. I know how much I struggle with myself in my own head. I don't know if you guys are like me, but there's a point in my sobriety, I was probably a couple of years in, where I just started to realize my thinking. I'm like, God, can you just take my brain? Can you stop with the crazy? Can you just shut it off? And that hasn't happened. I don't think gets to happen. But it's good because it constantly keeps showing me where I am at alone by myself. This is where I can get to on any given day. So it shows me the need for doing this stuff. Aside from just saying a prayer, especially mumbling words on a page, these things have to mean something to me. It has to have some form of intimacy, a personal connection and relationship. Otherwise, I'll stop doing it. Like, what's the point? And for me, the way that it really carries that much weight and it becomes personal to me in that way is when I act it out. Like, I'm asking, please take these things from me so that I can do something worthwhile for somebody else. And when you get out of your own way and you just try to be there, it's a miracle every single time. Because of the elation that happens. Man, especially in my line of work, I'm in the bricklayers union, and there are tons of alcoholics that I work with, right? And they don't even know it yet. And it's so crazy because we'll be on some scaffold hanging off a building, and we talk about some kind of thing, and they're talking about how they're angry all the time, and all this kind of stuff, and then I share like a thing, and I would get like that, and usually had to do it my drinking, and I would drink like this, and they go, oh man, that sounds like me. And it's like, oh, okay, we got another one, and I'm armed with these facts about myself so that I can maybe be helpful to somebody. That doesn't mean I go around and I'm trying to wave the sobriety wand and bop everybody in the head and all that stuff. But have I put myself in a place where people can see, like it says in this last line, that these difficulties that are being removed. Why? So that I can be a witness to other people that it's possible for you too. These things happened in me. They're still happening with me and all around me. And that can happen for you. And I could show you, if you want, we can have a conversation and talk about these things. And if you have your own way of doing it, hey, my hat's off to you. That's like what our literature says. So I'm not a reformer. I'm not here to push anybody or whatever. But it's undeniable what's happened in my life. They use these words that we were reborn after these, what many people call the third step promises. So it says that when I really took this position, when I really put my life, everything that I would think that my life is. So think of what are the things that are your life. And if you think it's like, your car and your job and your relationship and all that, then that's, do that. And that's a great start. But I think that your life, like, what are you? And if you haven't came, with that question yet, that's a pretty tough one, the who am I question. That's a weird one to try to rattle around in your head. But what do I do? Like, what am I doing here? What is my day comprised of? And what is my purpose? That, for me, that's like the who am I? So as I'm taking these things and I'm putting everything that I think I am into God's care, into like these perfect, loving hands to be protected and like just to be cupped over, and I know I'm being taken care of. When I'm really taking that position, they say that I have a new employer, that being all powerful, he provided exactly what I needed, everything that I needed, so long as I kept close to him. Remember, being close to a thing, so I can constantly see how big he really is in my life. And as long as I'm performing this work well. And that means making an attempt. This decision followed by action, I know that this power has flowed in. That's why I can talk about this stuff today. I'm not making these things up, and hopefully I'm saying things that make sense. I'm just trying to say it in the way that I know how to express it today at this moment. But it's all these experiences. It's even sitting with my mom years ago, when I had first got sober, and we read page 60 and 60 to 63 together. Because she asked me, what's your sobriety thing about? And I remember being in her room in her old house, and we read these things, and we got to those promises, and she saw that I was changed. She didn't see that I got my old life back. She saw I was on an entirely different footing. She started crying because she also could relate to the actor. And this actor guy and all this kind of stuff here, and I'm not here to argue with anybody. Our definition of alcoholism is in all these pages prior to that. And in that definition, they don't reference things like the actor. And so many times you hear in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, people refer to like, oh, I was cut this guy off and I had this bad day and I'm an alcoholic. I'm like, what the heck does that have to do with it? Because I thought alcoholism was like, when I start drinking, I can't stop. And when I stop, I don't know when I'm going to start again. That's alcoholism. The other stuff that happens throughout the day and the resentful and this guy's an idiot and all that kind of stuff, that's this spiritual malady that we're talking about, that we really get onto in the next page on 64 when we begin to talk about resentment. But these characteristics, like this actor and people wanting to run the show, that's people in the world. Alcoholics are an extreme example of these things. My son, when he was about 11 or 12, he told me, I said, Ro, do you have any homework? He said, no, Daddy, whatever, in his little voice that he had at the time. Now he's like, oh, no, Dad, whatever. But, he, with his mustache. And so he's like, no, I don't have any homework. And so I'm like, okay, and I'm being, good but lazy dad. And I'm like, so I'm not going to investigate. We're just hanging out, doing whatever. And then at the end of the night, bad parenting move, I check his homework folder, and it's like, bro, why didn't you tell me that you had homework? Oh, well, I just didn't want to get in the way of our time together. And I was like, oh, my God. Wait a minute. Like, I know that move, So that's this thing. That's this actor. He's not an alcoholic yet, and hopefully not ever. But, he hasn't picked up alcohol. So he's just a person in this world doing what people do. That's it. And he wanted to manipulate the situation. I would have. There's plenty of things that I have to check myself on. Am I manipulating? Am I being too nice because I'm trying to get a desired outcome? Is it genuine, sincerity or niceness? Am I being accurate with people around me? Am I being honest without being like too brash or abrasive? I constantly am checking myself on that in me so that I'm not this extreme example. Because what do? I cause havoc. The third step in the big book is great because, we could get into drag out fights all day long when somebody says, well, I know what God's will is. I remember way back in the day, I think I had a year sober, and we were down at Life or Death, if anybody's ever been there. And there was this guy who was there, and he's sober a really long time, and I only know that because he made it clear that to me, because he said, do you anybody have a topic? And I said, God's will and sponsorship, because I'm like, big book thumping through the roof. I'm excited. I'm sober. I know what the answer is. Who wants to sponsor? I'm ready, and all that. And this evangelical thing. And this guy, he was irritated, to say the least, at me. And he's like, God's will? I don't know what God's will is. One day the sun shines, and the next day it rains. And like kind of loudly, but under my breath, I said, what is your God, a meteorologist? And then he's like, I've been sober longer than some of you have been born. And now he's staring right at me, which is probably the truth, but, whatever. And it was this whole thing. And then his self had to come in, his sobriety, how long he had been sober for. I shared with you guys my sobriety date. Not to say that I'm on any kind of, like, we're all here. We're all sitting. Luckily, I'm not standing. We're all, like, at the same eye level. Because that's the way it is, right? Some of us have had experiences, and I still look to the people who came in before I did, who shared awesome things about experiences that they had with their parents or these miraculous, just, they can't happen until God makes that happen kind of moments. And I look up to that, and I appreciate those things. But I also understand that we're here together to do this thing together. And that's the beauty of it, that we're just intertwined. And we, as a fellowship, are trying to carry this message. But the beauty of the big book is that they're not over here arguing with you or trying to say exactly what God's will looks like. But they show us all these examples of self-will run riot, right? So that this way we kind of check ourselves on, how am I doing? Love Sandy Beach. He says that's like the best spiritual question. How are you doing? That's how I can really check myself. And I have to be honest about that inventory. Like a little bit later, we're going to have these steps after we write this inventory. Then we have to talk to some people about it. 3 people. Maybe one's not so much a person. But it's God and ourselves and another human being. Because without doing that, we may have thought that we lost our egoism and fear. We may have thought that we humbled ourselves, but we didn't find enough of humility in the sense that we find it necessary until we really told all our story. So that inventory daily of all my story, am I being honest with other people around me about what's really going on inside of me? Because when I do that, that gives me a clear indication of where am I at in this decision, in this commitment. And remember, initially it's like, okay, we know we've taken the third step because we started writing an inventory, but it did say permanent effect. And that's true. That means a lot to me because this is a permanent thing. This is a permanent way of life. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And, get on the wrong forum, AA forum online, and people want to argue with you about that. I don't care. If somebody says they're recovering, I believe you. Then that's what you're doing. I just know what's happened to me. I know that I didn't wake up this morning and I had to make a choice that I wasn't going to drink. It wasn't even anything that came into my mind. I haven't thought about that in a long time. And I don't ever really think about it. And the only time I actually think about drinking is when I'm sitting down with somebody, and not in the sense that I have an obsession, but I'm talking to them about my drinking so that they can identify with me. And that's the only time I really ever think about it. Other than that, it's just like, it was how I was. Now, I still believe I'm alcoholic. I don't think I can safely drink, but I don't need to because I found the thing that I was looking for every time I drank. And I found it in taking these steps and trying to practice these principles in all my affairs, especially with other alcoholics. And when you do that, my experience is that you're reborn. I have a new life. I'm on an entirely different footing. And I have the thing that I was always looking for, was just that I'm okay and I'm content. And I get to share that with other people. And I love to hear, especially new people, share their stories and their experiences with this newfound contentedness that they found, especially when they go out and they make these amends. So if you want to make your sponsor happy, or you want to make any of us in the fellowship happy, go out and make these amends, go out and sponsor other people, and come back and tell us about it. Because I love to hear that. Because I found how to be happy for you. Thanks.
Great job, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.